morning, everybody. My name is Kimberlie Wright. Welcome to another edition of Hand-Built Pottery and Sculpture. All right, today we're going to be creating a hat or a few hats for to represent the a representation of honoring the tea hat for tea hats that you actually wear to a tea hat party. I'm going to make a miniature size hat. We discussed the history of some of the history of tea hats and what they involve as far as design and decoration. And we watched a few videos as pertains to seeing some hats, the history of hats, 100 years and design. So be mindful that we are recording. If you have background noise, please keep yourself muted. If you have any questions or suggestions as I'm going along, you can unmute yourselves. So I guess from there, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. First of all, I'm gonna put on my apron to protect my clothing. If you want to get some clay and your tools to create the piece with me, you can. However, if not, you know you're more than welcome to refer to YouTube later to see the video in case you want to create your own design of a hat. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've already pre-made some things so that they can pretty much get leathered. I'm going to bring my camera closer. And we'll just go from here. So the first thing I'm going to do is work on this particular piece that I'm leathering right here. What I've done is rolled out a piece of clay. I have several circles here. I've used one of the circles to cut out a circle. That doesn't mean you have to have that set of circles. You can find circles in your home. As you can see, I have plastic on this piece so that it doesn't stick. And this is going to be the base of my hat, but I've already cut a hole in the center where the person's head would fit. And I'm just going to smooth that out a bit. And place the candle that I had just to hold it down back right there. Still sitting to the side to let it leather a bit. And I'm going to create the next part to it. I'm going to get my clay. We're going to smash that out and roll it out. All right, so I'm going to roll this piece out fairly long. Taking my time, rolling it out. I want it to be somewhat thin, but not too thin where it will start to break. Just turn it on each side as I roll so as to get the clay even. All right. So I think that's pretty good. And what I'm going to do is take the 2 center small circles. I'm going to use about this second small size. This is how it looks compared to my hand. All right, I'm just going to cut out a circle that I need from this piece. Roll out just a little bit more the other way. All right, I'm just cutting out that second size circle. what I'm going to do is just use this rounded candle just to sit it on top of to give it a curve, a rounded curve, so to speak. Even though I'm using this particular candle, I'm going to still shape it with my hand. And then I want to cut a design in this, maybe like a tip. Instead of cutting first, I'm going to draw it to make sure it comes out level as I want it, because I'm eyeballing it instead of using a ruler. Okay, so I'm cutting that tip, cutting those pieces off. The reason why I'm doing this is because I just got another idea of something to do while I'm waiting for my other pieces. Another hat, if you will. All right, so I'm going to pry this off of here and then go ahead and still make it rounded out. But I'm going to go ahead and smooth the edges with my sponge. It's not wet, but it's damp, so that it can apply some type of moisture to the edge to smooth it out. I'm smoothing this inside and the edge out first, you see, because once I start to build my design and everything on it, I won't be able to turn it over to smooth that, the inside. So once again, I am curving this piece, and I have a tip in the front. And I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of paper towel to make me a mold. So what I'm doing is dipping that halfway in the water. I just need the whole thing to be not dripping wet, but somewhat moist, just to keep its shape. Making like a small ball, if you will. And I'm going to place that top of the hat on here so that I can get a rounded shape and set it to the side to leather while I'm creating something else. So essentially what I'm doing is just multitasking. I just had another idea, so I just decided to go ahead and work on it at the same time. All right, I also turned this on the bottom side to see if it was filled properly. It's only one little space. It doesn't have a piece of mold right there, but I think it should be fine. All right, I'm going to smooth off the top with my sponge, and I'm just going to sit that to the side. And I previously made a rounded one like so, as you can see. So I have to go ahead and make a mold, the paper towel mold, to sit in that as well, so it does not collapse once I work on it. Once again, making sort of like a ball. I'm gonna sit that in the inside of that piece and smooth out the top. Had like a little fingernail blemish or indentation, so I smoothed that out, and I'm sitting that back to the side. But first I need to make sure it still has the right rounded shape, like a half cylinder that I want. All right, so now we get into the design of what I want. I'm going to use this rubber plate that has a design on it. The design that's on here is called Chantilly lace. I don't know if you can see that. It's Chantilly lace. And so what I'm going to do is just roll that down the clay so I can get a strip from it. Gently, not too hard. You don't want to change the thickness of the clay, so to speak. I roll up and down and side to side. making sure that the design actually gets in there. Then I'm putting it right beside it. You know, you can use lace, like a piece of lace. You already know that. Anything that really has texture on it, that's where you can get your textures from for rolling your clay. Sometimes they have little plates like this at design plates like this at Family Dollar and Dollar Tree as well. Sometimes when you shop there, just look in the arts and crafts section when you're there just to see what they have. They always get in different products when they get their shipments in. So I gently pulled that up from there, pressing it back down. Now I'm going to pull the whole piece from the canvas just to make sure it's able to release. And I'm going to use my ruler to go ahead and I'm going to measure where the center circles are because I like that. I guess that would probably be at my top. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that design all the way down. I'm just going to sit this to the side, even though it has this little design on it. I might use it. And then I'm going to measure the width of the ruler with a little line. And I'm going to come down just a little bit taller or longer. I'm eyeballing the dimensions here because of what I envision making. I'm just, you know, it's easy peasy, just doing what I need to. So I'm cutting these sides out at an angle, and I'll show you the cut. Like so. So you see one is going out that way, and let me turn it to make sure. So it looks like I need to possibly, bring one the same way. And how is that going to pan out? No. All right. So I'm cutting two pieces now. I'm putting that right on top just to level it out to see how that measures up. All right, I think that's pretty good. All right, so first, this particular side, I have two pieces that look like this. I'm gonna join two sides right here, sitting it down. So I'm laying it down and I'm actually taking my textured feather tool with a little water and I'm going to scratch that particular seam together. I'm going back and forth so as to not push the clay just one way. As you can see, I'm scratching the inside of the piece so that I don't mess up my design on the other side. And I'm just going to take this brush, has a little water on it, smooth that, and then dry it up with the sponge, but still pushing together so that those two pieces that I actually put together will seem seamless and the line will disappear. So I'm going to the other side to actually connect the other side of the seam. I'm kind of just squeezing it together with my finger gently on the outside. So again, I won't compromise my design or mess it up too much. And then I'm going to wet my feathered texture brush again and scratch on the inside of the other end gently right across the line, going both ways, right and left. Then I'm going to take my brush, it's wet, adding some water, smoothing it, going back and forth both ways so as to not push the clay only one way. And then I'm going to smooth with my finger. I need a little moisture on my finger. And I'm going to smooth with the sponge as much as I can. So the sponge is really big, but all I have to do is squeeze it so that it can fit in the inside, so to speak. This is what I've come up with. And what I'm going to do is make sure the bottom portion,
hold it down.
make sure the bottom portion is round here. Sorry about that. And I'm going to put that to the side. I'm leaving this particular piece. I'm sorry, I'm not leaving it on. I'm taking this off because what I want to do for this particular hat is turn it on the opposite side. As you can see, it looks like this. It's more upward. And what I decided I thought would be kind of cute to make, since it's a tea party hat, was an actual hat that looked like a saucer. And this is going to be my teacup that goes right on the hat. So I have to add a coil. And I'm going to put that to the side just a second. So I needed this coil to fill in the gap of my circle. It's a little bit wider than my teacup, but I like my teacup, so I'm not going to change it. So I'm rolling some clay. Need a coil, a rope-like piece of clay. I think it should stay about this thick. I'm going to just go ahead and scratch lightly here. Let me pull this closer. Sorry. Gonna scratch lightly right around the edge. Then I add a little slip. Slip is clay and water. We use it for glue. And a little bit, not too much, because I don't want to over add slip where I'll be having too much slip to clean up. You know, just the amount that I know it's going to help stick the coil. So I'm placing this coil around that circle to actually close my circle in, because mine is a little bit too large, once again, for my tea cup. But before I actually, even though I cut it a little bit, I know about how much I have to go in, so I'm just going to measure from there. Need to close it in just a bit more. I'm pressing it down in there just to get it to sit right. All right, so that's how my teacup is going to sit. And I'm just going to push my finger in the inside. I have this hole here because realistically, even though it is miniature, I want it to represent like it is actually going to sit on someone's head. So I'm pushing the coil and the teacup gently together before I actually pull half of the coil down and half of it up. But I don't want the teacup to slip down anymore, so I'm kind of just attaching it to the coil, and now I'm going to work on that coil as far as smoothing everything out. I hope I don't compromise or mess up my design too much, which everything seems to be going well so far. So someone might not think, being that it's so miniature, that it's actually a hat. They're probably just going to say that's a saucer with a teacup on it. But once I have my whole collection of hats together, they'll get the gist of what it is. All right, so even though I have scratched around there and it looks really rugged, I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up because I won't be able to clean it up once I put my handle on my teacup. Anybody out there creating anything right now along with me? Or if you feel interested in making these, any miniature hat, even one, you can, don't forget you can display it if we get a chance to get enough together for that display, which will be for the tea party. All right, it's not gonna take that long, just be patient and go around it, clean it up. You see I'm scraping the clay off on the side of my cup, but I'm actually putting it back into my slip. All right, placing my finger in the inside to add pressure, so while I'm pushing on the outside, I won't actually push the cup down or punch it in. All right, I'm almost all the way around it. Continue to scrape and clean up. And now, I think as far as the levelness, it looks pretty level. I'm just going to go around one more time. And if it's level, then you can go ahead and smooth with some other type of tool, which I'm going to use a brush. All right. So the reason why I'm not using my finger is because I don't want to compromise the design that I've already used from it being on the back of this particular vase or vase that I have, or pot. And even though I'm getting some water, you see I'm scraping most of the water off of the side. I just want to get around this center portion to smooth. You can see I'm moving right and left, so I won't push the clay just going one way. The clay does move. And I'm going to clean my brush. It has picked up clay from that, just from that one brushing, and then I'm going to the other side. And already this is looking really smooth. I don't want to wet the edges too much so as to make it flop back down. Trying to get it to raise up just like a saucer of tea. Yes, a saucer, but it's still a hat. All right. So now that's pretty much done. And what I'm going to do is take this strip that I had the design on, and I'm going to go ahead and cut what I would use for the handle. All right. And I'm going to use the ruler to do that. Sorry, I think I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this piece that has the width of it a little wider and take this other piece that I had that's a little thinner so I can make something more out of it that I just thought of. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that first line is straight. And then I'm going to come again and go ahead and make, I think I want to make one side kind of thick, come in thin, and then come out again. So I'll let you see that cut, even though you know that's way too long to be a handle. The top is kind of like wide. It comes down a little thin. And so I'm just going to actually curve that. And while I am letting it sit with the curve, I'm just going to go ahead and sit it to the side and let it just a few seconds while I put the holes in the side where in the side of the teacup where the actual handle is going to be sitting. So I was reaching for a hole puncher. I found it. All right. So where the teacup has the tips, That's exactly where I'm gonna put the handle, so that the smoothest part of the teacup, that would be where the person would drink. Although this is still a hat, I'm still thinking of it as it is something real, so that it can look more realistic. This hole puncher is a little bit too large, but what I'm going to do is just use the tip to dig a little bit out of the crevice, so to speak. And then I'm going to take like a toothpick or something small and kind of just dig in to make it a little deeper hole. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom where I want the bottom of the handle to lie, and that looks like that. You can see those two holes. I'm taking a piece of paper towel and maybe tear a piece in half. I'm going to wet just a portion of that, so that the moisture, when I squeeze it, it will just get on the other areas of the piece. I'm going to open it up and make a ball where it's more neater, folding the edges in. And so I have a ball. Now I'm going to take some slip. I can't believe I set my brush in the slip, but it's okay. I'm just going to clean it in the water. Sorry, I'm talking a little bit low, talking back louder. Sorry about that. I have some slip. I'm putting it in the crevice or the indentation of each of those holes. And as you can see, I curved that back a little bit. I'm going to attach that to the piece, and before I go all the way down, I think I'm going to scratch the top level of that piece to make sure it's attached to the teapot. Taking a little water, smoothing it out. Every time I smooth, me particularly, I like to get my sponge and dry up that area so that the moisture just doesn't sit there and continue to make the piece get more soggy or mushy and wet to break. And so I'm just going to measure, probably cutting a little bit longer than I think I need to curve that in. Cutting at the bottom. If I have to cut a little bit more, it's fine. That's why I cut it a little longer. I'm curving that piece in, and it actually was perfect. And so what I'm going to use, my finger is a little bit too fat to fit down there, but I'm going to put my finger in the inside to apply some pressure and use a tool to just press that down. Now this little opening right here is where on the side is where I actually got my tissue to sit right there in this pocket to actually hold it, so that it would not, it could just be like a mold or something to strengthen it or to hold it, but I'm not really sure if I need it. I guess the only reason I would need it is if I continue to spray the piece or something like that. So I have my handle for my teacup. And one other thing that I thought would be neat, if you look down in the teacup, you would only see the person's hair if they actually, meaning if it was on somebody's head. And so it's open, but when I paint it, I still could put a dark color inside or medium brown color in the inside to represent the color of tea. And so far, that's what I have. But with my other piece I'll be finished with this particular piece in just a second. And so even though I have all that excess clay, I want to kind of just compile it together and make sure to spray it, keep it moist so that you can reconstitute it and use it again. I'm spraying that all together, kind of cleaning up as I go. And now this particular piece here, I'm going to cut out let's see. Actually, I'm gonna sit this on the other side and roll this piece on here again because I see like a circular pattern on here that I really want to use. And it will be beautiful. And so I'm just gonna roll that gently, picking the clay up to release it from the design. And then I'm gonna use this to go on this very opposite end, so to speak, but putting a break in the design. That wasn't hard enough. So I'm just pressing it with my fingers. All right, so I have the design here. Then I have a break here with a little bit of design. I'm just gonna cut out what I'm making so I can show you what I had in mind. I think it's kind of cute. That should be fine for the size that we're making. I'm going to come in and out and up and back in. I'm actually just drawing what I'm creating so that I can cut it out, but I want to draw it first in case I make any type of mistakes and I can correct them before I actually cut the piece. So even though I just freestyled this on a whim, I think it came out pretty cool. All right. So I'm gonna cut this out and then I'll shape it and actually show you what I created, unless you can already see it, which is no problem, it's fine.
A spoon.
Yes. So this is a spoon, but I'm going to, the part here, I'm gonna go ahead and press the design a little, as gently as I can, so that I can still have a little bit of that design in the inside.
Hold it down.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm pressing the shape of the spoon, and the design has disappeared a little bit, but as long as I have some of it there, it's fine. When I attach the spoon to the saucer, I'm going to place it where the curve in the spoon will be where it needs to be. So as you can see, you see the spoon has like a curve, or it's actually rounded where that you can actually, looks like you can actually use it, so to speak. And I think it's supposed to have a curve here, yes, so to speak. So what I got to do, sorry young people, my my sensibility of a spoon was a little bit off. So the best thing to do is go ahead and get a spoon so that you'll have something to refer to. So as you can see, the spoon is really raised there and where you are eating from the spoon. I had this paper towel earlier I was gonna put inside the handle, but I don't need it. So what I'm gonna do is actually sit it up under that area. I think it needs to be a little bit longer. All right, so we got that. What I'm going to do is figure out which, so I would think this would be the side of the hat, so to speak. And since it's more space there, I'm going to place my spoon here. I want to add my paper towel under that piece where I want it to be lifted. I'm taking my tool so that I can kind of just sit it there. I'm looking at the shape of the spoon while I am actually putting my spoon down, not to press so hard so that my plate falls down. Making sure my spoon is lifted up properly. All right, now I'm gonna go back and lift it up where the spoon is hitting the base of the saucer and add some slip so that it can be attached to the piece, to the hat. And all I have to do is clean this brush, get a little bit of the water off, and brush around that area where the spoon is. And apply a little pressure at the same time. And I'm lifting the actual spoon portion where you eat from, adding some slip to that, sitting it down and brushing around that. As I'm brushing the spoon, I'm looking at anything else to see if it needs to be brushed as well. All right, as it settles, if you need any more, anything else to help prop it, feel free to go ahead and do that. The last piece of my project here, or the hat, will be creating. So let me get just a little bit of clay. I sprayed this already, and I'm just going to make a block. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm making it so that I can probably cut 2 pieces out of here. I'm beating the edges together just like that. And I'm gonna cut 2 blocks out of this.
Sugar cubes.
Sugar cubes. You're such a smart cookie. All right, I'm cutting this side, this side. Trying to make them small enough to actually look like they belong on the spoon and in the cup. And it's a little tall, so I'm turning it to the side to cut it down. All right, remember I said miniature, so that's why I'm continuing to go down. And then now I'm going to create a second one. How many sugar cubes you think I should put in my tea? 1 or 2?
2.
Okay. All right. So I think I will again turn it to the side to make it a little bit more shorter. Looks a little too tall for me. These are the 2 cubes. I'm going to scratch the cubes rather than mess with my spoon anymore to compromise the shape of that. I'm going to scratch my cubes on the bottom with a little bit of water. You see me dipping that in my cup. Not the teacup, the real cup. And then I'm gonna take, sometimes I can get so corny, huh? I'm putting a little slip or glue on the bottom. That's a little bit too thick. That's what I scraped off on the side. So I need to go on the bottom to get some that's a little bit more slurry. I'm just sitting one of the cubes in the spoon, putting some slip on the other one, and sitting this one somewhat flat, but not all the way. I don't know if that looks too full, but I think it looks pretty good. And so one other thing that I wanted to create for this piece, I keep saying that was the last thing, but as I'm going on, don't forget, young people, creativity, just take risk and do everything you can. If you continue to have ideas, then just keep going for it. So I'm just gonna roll this piece of clay out here as thin as I can get it without it breaking. I'm just rolling that slow so I don't shake the table too much. My table is really wobbly. And once I said this clay was a little bit moist, but I said if it sticks to the rolling pin, that's how you know it is getting too thin. But it's okay. I'm just going to work with it because I need a really thin piece. And what I'm doing is getting a thin piece and cutting a little square. The reason why I'm not cutting it so small is because I wanted to be able to release the clay from the canvas. And now, since I have it up, now I'm going to go ahead and cut the actual size of the square that I really want. And it's going to be about that size. Going to make sure it's right. And what I'm going to do is kind of just, you know, I guess tease it a little bit to make it appear like paper. Then I'm going to scratch the side of this cup right here. Add a little slip to my paper, which is going to be the piece of paper that comes off the string of the tea bag. Tea bag is down inside the cup. All right, so I think I need to brush that where it hits the edge of the cup just so that it actually smooths in a little bit. I want to make sure it's attached. I'm going to smooth that a bit with my finger, not too much. And the edge of the cup, if I see any blemishes, taking my sponge, drying that up. And the last thing, a little piece of clay. Okay, I need a piece bigger than that because that's a little too small. By the time I roll that, it'll really break because it's just too small. Instead of rolling on the canvas, I'm going to roll directly on this table so that I actually get a piece as thin as I can, I guess the clay can stand. I was just thinking I could possibly use real string, but I'm just going to go ahead and create just a piece of coil to try to duplicate a real string. And what I'm going to do is take that off right there. Go ahead and add just a little bit of slip where the tip of this paper is. And I'm adding my string, smoothing that portion in. And I want to kind of curve it where you'll still be able to see it, but it's going down inside the cup. All right. And this is my first hat. Right now I'm going to just clean up a bit and sit this right back on top of the stand to give it a time to dry. Fixing my plastic. And I'm going to sit the hat up here and go ahead and make sure the saucer is shaped how it needs to be. Raising it back up because on the spoon side, the spoon has really lowered that side down. All right, so even though this is going to be drying today, I'll still be looking at it and checking it to see if it has like starting to fall or whatever, but this is how this particular first hat looks. You can see the tea bag, the little piece of paper that's usually on the end. Sometimes they have little affirmations. See the string, teacup, the handle, the spoon, the sugar cubes, and down inside the hat, can't even see, it's so dark, but it's hollow. There's a hole there for the person's head to be able to fit there. All right, even though I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more hats I could make, I'm just gonna go ahead and probably create a couple more things on one more hat before I go ahead and close out class. I'm respraying this clay. I created this particular hat here by cutting out a circle, sitting this on top of this particular candle holder I have. I have plastic on it. I made a rim around. You can see that it's a hole in the inside for the person's head to fit. And what I wanted to do for that particular hat was to create a some flowers. So around this entire hat, I'm going to create different flowers. They won't be the same flowers, be all sorts of different flowers, sort of like in a garden. Yeah. Since a lot of the tea parties were first outdoors in the garden, I wanted to create a replica of or something of a garden. And so I'll at least do 3 flowers so that you can see and maybe quickly go to another hat. It looks like they might be already leathered for me to go ahead and do something to the other pieces. So again, flowers to make them look sort of real. I want to make sure my clay is thin. But once I get to the thin portion, once it's thinned out, I want to add moisture so that it does not start to break and crack as I get it a little thinner. Once again, when it rolls up on that rolling pin, that means it's really getting thin, so be careful. All right, for me, one of the easiest flowers to make is you can make up your own flowers, or you can just wing it, or look online and create flowers from there. First thing I'm going to do is actually just draw a flower on my piece. And it's going to have 5 petals. 3, 4, 5. So some flowers you can just simply draw them out and cut. And that'll be a flower then. And then some stuff you want to make it in a more 3-dimensional form. It's really all up to what you want to do. So my first flower looks like this. Just a simple center and 5 petals. And what I'm going to do is scratch the area. Let me pull that closer. Where I want to place that. Add a little slip. So I just put a little slip on the edge of the spatula, and I'm just getting the amount that I want with my scratch tool, and I'm just going to kind of place that there. I'm pulling the petals up so that the flower will have appear to have a little movement. And I'm going to let that sit a minute, but I guess I can just pick it up and let you see it.
Oh, cute.
First flower. All right, next flower. So what I'm going to do is cut just a strip. One edge is straight and one edge is scalloped, or it has a hump where the pattern is going up, down, up, down. And what I'm going to do is just thin that out a bit more to make it look real. The reason why I broke that is actually because it broke on its own. So doesn't matter. I'm just gonna keep going, pressing it out. And what I'm doing is gonna roll this piece.
Hold it up. Okay.
I'm rolling so that I can
Making
get
a rose.
so I can get like a little bud type of look. Actually, I did not like that, and it's a little dry. So I'm starting from scratch again. All right. Yes, it is like a rose. It is a rosebud, Miss Diana. All right. Once again, you press that out. It's really getting dry, so you need to go ahead and actually do what you plan on doing. All right. When I rolled it, I want to roll it.
Kim, you're too far down now.
Sorry. I wanted to roll it where the actual inside of the bud is kind of sticking up a little bit. So I just changed it. And now I'm going to make this part come up some, but you see I'm pressing it thinner as I go. Little piece broke, but you know, you see petals on flowers looking a little broke sometimes. It makes it look natural. All right. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. As you can see, the bottom of this is really thick. And what I'm going to do, it's also in like a cone form. I'm going to cut it off so it will sit flat on the hat. So I cut the bottom, and I'm going to scratch the hat really close to the last 5-petaled flower that I did. Get some slip off my spatula. I'm adding it, probably like a good portion, so that I don't have to really brush around that rose too much. The glue will stick it. Actually, it's sitting out too far, so I need to cut that down just a bit more. For me, it's sitting out too far. You know, we all are the artists of our own pieces, so you make the judgment. This is the rose. Right now, I think I want to go ahead and cut out a leaf. So some places you might want to add a leaf, but you need to add the leaves in the bottom. I went on ahead and cut out a long looking leaf. I'm going to put a little slip on the tip and just kind of stick that behind the rose, so to speak. And actually, I want to make 2 leaves because I want one going upward. I'll show you in just 1 second. All right, so here's my second leaf. It's just a shape, just like a football or an eye. Taking a little slip. Putting it in the top. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and make maybe like 2 or 3 more flowers, and then I'm moving on to my next hat, which is gonna be a fascinator. All right, so my next flower is going to be maybe like a sunflower. I'm gonna make a button, which will be the center. Need a little moisture on that. I'm rolling it, the clay in my hand. And since the ball of this button is actually a full sphere or circle, I can cut it in half to have 2 flat sides and use it as 2 buttons for 2 different flowers. So that's what I'm going to do. So far as you can see, I have this piece, but it's flat on the opposite side. Then since I cut it in half, I have two. All right. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and cut some long pieces like so out of this clay. I'm not sure how many I need, but I'm gonna make, since it's really small, I figure I only need about 8. I'm cutting something that looks like figure 8s, but I guess I would say long, and also concentrating on getting the same shapes on each side. When I picked that up, it came out, but I'll show you the negative and the positive. This is the negative of how I cut it out. And these are the positives, which would be like some long petals. So what I'm going to do is just go to a whole nother total different side, or I'm asking myself, do I want to continue to work from the flower that I already started? I think I'm going to go ahead and work close to the flower that I already started, so I don't have to be trying to crunch in for the space. Make sure the spacing is already separated out even. And so what I did was create a star looking shape where I'm already going to put my glue. And I used up all that glue before, or which is the snip. And I'm going to take some and actually place it on those areas that were like the arms of the star, so to speak. Now I'm just going to place each petal, that's one, on the piece, but I'm going to go directly across from that petal like so that I can have everything leveled. Also, I'm going the other direction down. I'm dipping, even though I have slip on here, I'm dipping each tip of the flower in the slip so that I can just get a little bit more. You see 4. I cut about 8. So I'm just continuing to add them until they fill up, till the actual star area fills up. And I made those petals a little bit long to make this flower a little bit more dramatic. So since this petal right here is short, I'm going to use it to go up and use a longer one to go to the side. And it looks like from there I have one more petal to add that might kind of go over towards my rose. But it's okay. I can either cut the petal as the same length as the other ones or cut it a little shorter. I think I'm just going to cut it a little shorter because once I sit it up there, it kind of looks like it's covering up my rose. Actually, that doesn't even look natural. So I have to have it the same length as the other petals. And what I could do is bend it so that it doesn't cover up my rose all the way. I'm going to take my button and go ahead and scratch the back of that and add some slip with my spatula, with my feathered tool, so because it's small enough. You know, this stuff is getting small when you are making miniatures. All right, I just want to take my water, scrape it off of my brush a little, and just go around the center of that just a bit. just to kind of tie everything in together. Smoothing just a bit. I'm going in between them just to kind of make sure to smooth wherever it touches the hat, that it's getting attached and stuck to become part of the hat. And so far, this is what I have going around. That's how it looks. And I'm going to make one more flower. I'll continue the rest on my own so that I can move on to the next hat and at least finish 3. So what I'm doing now is just putting a little curve in the petals to even shorten the flower just a bit so that it's not really everywhere. And I'll show you all that. So right where those petals touch, I have to make sure to brush a little right there. All right, one more flower. I'm going to create a tulip, and all I have to do is draw a tulip design flower, half of it. I'm going to make it a little larger than what it usually appears to be so that I can curve it to make it look 3-dimensional. And as I continue to go around, I'm just going to try to, keep in mind that I'm creating different flowers instead of the same flower. Each time I go, I create something new. All right, so I'm cutting out this. As you can see, I haven't even drawn any designs on these flowers because I want to maybe draw my designs later. This is how this looks. It's kind of like a cup with a razor sharp bottom, and what I'm going to do is curve it sort of like that. And again, I made it larger because once I attach it to the hat, I want to be able to scratch down on the edges to make it attach, but it'll make the flower smaller. So I'm going on the side of that 5-petaled flower, and I'm going to scratch the same shape, maybe like a tulip. And that's where it's going to sit. I'm going to add slip. Excuse me. Add some slip. And I'm attaching the cup or tulip to the side here. And I'm going to go ahead and just pull the edges back with my fan tool. Scratch them back a little bit or score them back so that it becomes part of the hat. And I'm actually doing it in a neat fashion, a line around, so that I'm making the tulip smaller as I go along. I'm going to clean that up with my spatula that had all that slip on it. I have to use a lot of tools rather than my fingers because this stuff is really miniature and I could barely get my fingers around it. But wherever I am able to use my fingers, I just go ahead and have confidence and do it. Although you see my brush is really large, it will be helpful to have a small brush to get in smaller creases or crevices. I'm scraping the water off this brush so as to not wet the hat too much, putting my finger in the inside so that I can press back what I'm pressing in so that it doesn't cave in. Going around the tulip. And one thing is, you don't have to worry about if your flowers look all the way like natural flowers in nature, because once you actually add color and stuff too, your pieces will look much better. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and actually smooth where I had the jagged edges at the top of the flower as well.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you where you're gonna put the lines in the tulip.
Yes, so you see how I'm smoothing so much over these flowers as I add them to the hat. Once again, don't worry about designs too much until you actually finish attaching everything, because if you go ahead and scratch your designs and you still have to smooth and you're gonna compromise your design. Once this leathers or dries a little bit more, I'll go back and scratch in all my designs, like maybe some lines in these petals, some lines coming up in that tulip, you know. And as you can see, since I put such a large flower here, you see the rose bud. I might make another rose, make it look more full, because that's just kind of like a bud, a little 5-petaled flower. And it, you see here, I don't have that much to add as it pertains to flowers. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and sit this to the side and quickly go to our fascinators. For this particular one that I created that had the tip on it, all I want to do for that piece is actually spray this clay just to make sure it's moist on one side. And I'm going to cut a strip making sure it's even. It's not going to be that tall. It's going to just serve as a rim around this fascinator. Cutting here.
Around the what, Kim?
The fascinator. You know those little hats? They really, what do you call them hats? Like teacup hats? What was those hats called? They usually sit.
Peel box.
Yeah, peel box.
Peel box.
Kind of like peel box hat, but since the British people been wearing them, they have all these crazy designs. The actual name of them are called fascinators. So again, you see the paper here keeping it round, but I'm going to scratch around the edge of this hat. That's why I'm applying this strip. And I'm going to go ahead and put some slip on this strip. I think I'm going to put it on the actual hat instead of the strip. The reason why is because I need to adjust the strip once I get it on there. I'm just going to sit this just for like a little a base to hold this up while I apply the strip to it. So since where the tip is the front of the hat, I'm going to go ahead and I want that part to look smooth because that's the front of the, that's the front of the hat. I'm going to go ahead and add the strip where I can bend it, attach the rest to the back. Meaning where I have to put the seam together, I want to do that in the back and not in the front. I need to raise this strip up so it can look sort of like a band, like so. And as you can see my strip here, this part gets skinnier than here. And what I'm going to do is just fold this part around so as to cut the skinny part out. So showing that, I'm cutting it probably here, making a little line. I'm unfolding all of that so I can get the piece out, so to speak, and putting it back down and measuring again to see where I need to cut it off again. Going back to concentrate on my tip. Sorry. I'm so sorry. That's so crazy. Okay, right now I think I can go ahead and scratch that over and mend that part. so that it looks like it's one piece. All right. So for the bottom, I just have to make sure to look at it and make sure it all looks like the pieces are together. I'm going to go back with my brush and smooth that. I'm going to dry it up with my sponge. Where is my sponge? Right here. Yikes. I just broke where I mended the seam again. Okay. Let me brush around this portion right here in that crease. As you can see, I'm going back and forth so as not to push my clay only one way. And as I continue to brush there, it's creating slip that's going down in that crease to actually seal everything. And so, just going around it with my finger, smoothing it out. And I want to create, I think for that particular hat, I'm going to create a feather. So what I want to do is roll a piece of clay out, little thin. You know, feather, we use a term that says light as a feather. So you know feathers got to be really thin and light. But just to create the best feather I can with the clay, I'm making it as thin as possible without it breaking. You already see it's rolling up on the rolling pin, so that means it's really thin. I'm just going to actually draw a feather. I'm just going to draw a feather, and that actually is going to be the feather. Now, even though I drew this feather on the large size, I'm going to cut it down. You can see that.
I see it.
All right, so now I'm going to cut this feather just a tad bit smaller for the proportion of the hat. Gently taking the clay away from it. And even though I have the feather looking like so, I'm going to go ahead and go through the edge of the lines, like cutting it to make sure that if I cut down the edges of the lines a little bit, it'll make it fray apart a little bit to actually make it look like hairs from a feather. So I'll pick that up so you can see that again too. Just kind of cutting the edge out. I'm going to do the other side as well. And I'm still going back down my center once again, but not cutting, just to make sure the line looks neat. That's how it looks. And now I'm going to attach it to my fascinator. All right, so where I want to attach it is I want the feather to come kind of out in the center, but have the stem coming down like so. And so since I know I want to place it, I'm going to go ahead and kind of scratch there, like so. add some slip. Let me get my spatula. I have to get it out of here, out of the slip jar. I'm adding my slip down and around. And I don't want to get that too wet because my feather is so delicate that I don't want that to break. I'm going to place the feather on the fascinator and curve it around until it gets to the top. And actually, how you wear this fascinator, it sits on your head like so.
Yes, that's nice.
Tip coming to the front and the feather sticking up high like in the middle of your head, so to speak. All right, so I'm just gonna sit that.
Is the feather is gonna be toward the back or the front?
No, let me show you again. If this hat was big enough to sit on my head, it sits like on the front of your head, dipping down.
Okay.
So the feather kind of like sticks up. But the reason why it's not showing that it's like fitting down, it's gonna fit mostly on your head right here. But the reason why it's not like I can push it down because my tissue is there where like this would be fitting good on a Barbie doll's head. It's about the size of a Barbie doll's hat. So once I take my tissue out, it'll really fit on some little girl's doll. All right, my last one, it's almost 12 o'clock. I think it's ready. This is a disc that I've already put some spirals on. And I had my little cap that had the tissue under it. What I'm going to do is just cut a nice shape with this, maybe a tip on that side. I think that'd be cute. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. All right, and a tip there. All right, so I'm gonna show you what I'm actually cutting. It kind of looks like a guitar pick. I think Miss Carrie knows about guitar picks because she knows how to play the guitar. Maybe some of you other young people have that skill or that talent. But this kind of is the shape of a guitar pick. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and attach this to the side by scraping here. Sorry, I keep moving my camera. Scraping on the side here, really kind of deep, kind of almost gouging the clay out so that I can press it down on that piece and it'll really become a part of it rather than just sitting on the surface. And I'm going to add a sufficient amount of slip that I think will actually hold that disc. And I thought that I would use the spiral so that, so as you can see where the level of the hat is, here, I don't have the disc dipping down too much further. It's almost at the level because you want the height to be more on the head and not hanging down over the face. And as you can see, this side here, it's open. And since my design here is a spiral design, what I'm going to do, this is the last thing I'm going to make. I'm going to get a piece of clay and actually roll a coil and create a spiral and put it in that particular area to make a design. So also, as you can see, I set this hat down. You see that it sits level. If if this portion that's low wasn't as low as the hat, then it would be wobbling or laid over. So you have to be mindful if it actually fit on someone's head, how you want the pieces to be proportionally placed, or the design to be, so to speak. So what I'm doing is creating a coil where one portion of the coil is skinny and one is fat, just a little bit, kind of like a different size all the way down. You see some of it's skinny, some of it's a little thicker. And what I'm going to do is roll that not flat, but just down a bit so that I can get a good curve. And I'm going to cut the edges where they are straight. And from here, you can see that it's a little dry. I'm going to just add one spray of moisture, or that was kind of two. And I'm going to go ahead and create a spiral so that I can place it in that area. I'm using my tool to wrap around the piece as well to create a spiral, so to speak. And now I'm gonna like kind of go like an S and go the other way. Maybe I will overlap that one. Okay, so since I'm kind of sticking something on top of each other, I have to go ahead and scratch and add slip. I'm already going ahead to attach that so I don't have to do so much handling of the hat once I get it up there. That's a spiral, and I attach that. As you can see, that's what I've done so far. I'm going to go ahead and use that piece, and wherever the piece is hit now, I'm just going to go ahead and attach it once again, so I don't have that much work to do once I actually put it on the hat called a fascinator. Some spaces I can't get my fingers, so I'm using the tool. Right here, I've connected that piece that's on top of there. I've connected this piece right here. I'm going to make a large circle with a small spiral here. So I'm using my tool to turn it. If I just turn it without a tool, it might break. And so I'm going to scratch here. I already have some slip on my feathered texture tool, so I went on ahead and added that little spiral there. I just created that right then and there. And now what I'm going to do is pick the hat back up and see how I want to place that within there. I think I'm going to place it just like so. So I have to scratch the area where that is going to be attached. Go ahead and add some glue, slip, and place the piece back where I originally wanted it to sit. I'm going to take my brush and smooth around the areas where it was actually attached. Now, it doesn't take that long to actually make one hat. You can see in this time frame, I probably would have been actually working faster if I had not been doing it as a demo, talking and, you know, showing you step by step. However, and I've made 1, 2, 3, 4 hats. You can make one, I would say, depending on what you're making, in less than an hour, less than 30 minutes. So as long as you have in your mind what you want to make. All right, so this is the side of the fascinator. I'm trying to push that up a little bit more so I know that when you sit it on the person's head like so, that you can see some of the curves. That's why I'm pushing it. And actually the hat sits straight on top of the head. This part is to the side, meaning this is the front, and from the side you would see that curve, that swirl pattern like that. So I'm sitting that piece to the side, except for I see that I need to brush right in that crease one more time. I think I'm going to put a little curve on my disc. Yeah. Maybe I want that tip to be pointed down. No, I think the curve up was looking good. Yep. And then bring that around. Yep. Okay, so I need to smooth this edge and I'll show you the curve that I actually put on the edge. I think that looks neat. At first I was going to have it straight, but then I just realized since it's spiral and I have curves anyway, why not? Taking my finger and just a little water to smooth front edge. Front edge is kind of shaped, going curved like this, flips up. Then I have this part that I want to put a smooth curve in. And so from the front, this is how this fascinator looks. Side. Let's see from the front.
Down. Okay.
Actually, just looking at this, even though I see this curve, this is the front of the hat here. I still want my curve to be down.
Yeah.
It looks better. Yeah, it looks better.
Looking like a flying nun.
A pirate or something. All right. You can see the cap where your head fits. This is the front of the fascinator. This is the side where your whole head and hairstyle will be covered up on that side, but over on this side, you can have probably some curls sticking out or something like that. So I'm just gonna sit that to the side. The best way I know how to sit this so that it can dry, I have another candle that I'm sitting this candle in. I'm just gonna sit that there. Just like that. It's wobbling around, but it's not really touching. All right. Although I had one more piece, which is here, I'm going to create another hat on my own, and I'll be able to show that later, like a show and tell. So I don't actually know what I'm going to do, but so far, I just want to move all of these things out the way, which will only take a second. Bear with me. It doesn't take that long to clean up. I always tell you all, or say to you all, clean up your areas so that you'll be able to concentrate and see, for God's sake. All right. So you always want to make sure to put your precious clay back into a plastic bag and reconstitute it so that you will have it later to use. I don't recommend putting scraps into your slip unless you actually need some slip or the scraps have gotten like completely dry, but you can still reconstitute them. But you always need to keep your clay together so that you will have something to use for the next project. Even though I've added water, I'm putting that in the bag and adding more water, taking all the air out of the bag, one side, seal a portion. I still have a small hole, so I'm going to take all the air out of the bag, and then seal the rest of it so that it will stay moist. All right, I have all my circles put up, and my everything is kind of together so that I can fold this piece, which is the canvas, clean up just a bit. Remember, when you have dust particles, I like to wet them so that you don't be breathing all that dust in, and kind of wipe up from there. Instead of just blowing dust or sweeping dust, you don't want to blow it, because when the clay is in dust form or dry like a dust, it creates respiratory problems, so be careful with that. And we have our pieces, what we've created today. What I'm going to do is take this fascinator off, take that candle back out, sit that fascinator down so that I can use this candle to hold the one up with the feather. All right, and I'm bringing my hat over with the tea cup and saucer and wiping my hands. And actually, these are the pieces for today. I'm going to create this last one on my own and show it in class. Next time, I have to create the rest of the flowers on this particular garden hat. I finished the teacup hat and the 2 fascinators. And I think I can possibly even turn this upside down.
To the candlestick holder. I can't call the name of it now.
The fascinator with the feather.
No, the candlestick holders.
Say it again.
Did you complete the candlestick holder?
Candlestick holder. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's got a name, but I can't remember.
Oh,
the Kwanzaa.
The Kenara. No, it's not completed.
Okay.
I already took it.
Okay.
It's on the shelf at the facility, so it's drying. But once I fire and it becomes big, everything, I'll show it to you all.
Okay.
I hope you all have really enjoyed this. And just give me 1 second, everybody who is still in class. All right. Sorry for leaving the video like that, but I had to actually get my hands clean so that I don't continue to get this clay dirt everywhere. So is there a hat that I made today that somebody out there likes? Anybody like any of the hats that I created? I guess not.
I like everything.
Yeah, all of them.
Okay. Are you interested in making a miniature hat yourselves?
I'm gonna try one.
Okay, cool. And just for your own information, or even your research, I'm just going to share something with you quickly, even though I said class is going to be over. If you have to go, feel free. But if anybody is able to stay on, give me 1 second. Almost there. All right.
Tell us about the schedule, Kim.
I'm going to be calling everybody today.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
You going off?
No, I'm still here.
Was hearing stories of great-great-grandparents and all those things that people pass down, and you kind of wonder how much of it's really true. Margaret Oak Hoover, that's my grandma. That name I've ever heard of. I do. So, hey, we're looking at.
These are some ideas for you all in case for your own pieces, and if you want to look back on any of these videos, feel free. beautiful.
They're making those Peter box hats with barrettes attached to them now, aren't they? Kimberlie,
I can't hear you. 1 second. Sorry, let me turn this
I
down.
can't hear you. Okay, that's all right.
What did you say, young lady?
Some of them are berets attached to them.
You said, do they have berets attached to them?
The barrettes, you know, they're like this right here. I got it on my head.
Like a band?
A beret.
I don't know. Some of them could be
Yeah, I
bands,
like that
some
one.
could be berets, some could be half little hats. You know, might have to go back and look at some. I really like that hat that had like the bird sticking out of it. This will be over in just a couple of more minutes. Some of them could just be sticking in your head with a pen. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Or with some pens. That's beautiful for a wedding. Giving me some ideas for my last hat.
I can't hear you.
I said this is giving me some ideas for my last hat that I'm creating. That's cute. Ooh, look at that bird. Ooh, butterflies. Almost
I
done.
have to be holding that one down.
Yep, that's a band, like a headband right there.
Barrette, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I would imagine they use a lot of bobby pins.
That's what I said. They probably pin a lot of them in. Almost finished.
Whatever happened to the hat pins?
I'm sure they still sell them. Cause I'll tell you right after this video. Like that. All right. So if you all want to watch this video, what I looked up was fascinator hats. I'll type that in the chat. If you want to look up fascinator hats. Sorry. All right. So what I was about to say was, what'd you ask? Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, you said something about the pins. They probably have a lot of pins, and somebody said, what happened to the hat pins? I don't know what happened to them per se, but I know sometimes I shop at Value Villages in the thrift store, and they have like some of those metal picks that you stuck down in your head, and they had like a flower or something on the side. And then sometimes they have the pins, but they're like really hard to find. And I'm sure that some of these brand, name brand people who make jewelry, like I'm sure they make some really elegant pins that probably cost an arm and leg. And you are right, Miss Ethereal, like the band that you have on headband, they were having some pieces with a band that come down, so that was really holding really well. So that's all I have for you today. That is the actual, what I looked up, fascinator hats. It's in the chat if you want to go back and look at any of those videos for your own research to be able to come up with some ideas on your own for your hats. And if you want to take pictures of those hats, if you get a chance to finish, we'll be displaying them in the tea and hat slideshow that I'll be creating. Thank you so much for joining once again, Handmade Pottery and Sculpture. Did you have a question?
Men don't attend tea parties.
Say that again.
And because you didn't have any men hats, so they don't attend tea parties.
Traditionally, it was like, you know, men probably in the Victorian era had their own thing that they were doing, like hunting and having some other type of men gatherings like golf, or I'm not really sure, but this was strictly a gathering that women would have and organize themselves and probably talk about women's things like when the men gonna give us a chance to vote and we gotta break through it, you know, for feminine rights. Maybe they were discussing such as lingerie, you know, things that were kind of taboo. You know, women always have to get together to cultivate femininity and women's talks, things that we help each other through, like different rights and stuff. So the men had their own thing and women had their own thing.
And gossip.
Yes, gossip. Chit chat. And the other thing is, if there were probably some servants, I would even think that the servants, that was probably like a lady's job in the kitchen. They probably were like women too, but if they had like a butler or something, maybe a man was around, maybe it probably was informal for him to have a hat on. But I'm gonna do a little research to see if any men were around a tea party. But if you want to be creative, just to create a hat that would be for a man, you know, go for it. I feel like that's creative. Just do it. Anybody?
Where can I buy some food?
Say that again.
Where can I buy some glaze?
Where can you buy some glaze? I'm gonna put it in the chat as well. The chat is right on the side. I'm gonna say it out loud, but you can buy glaze from Davin's Pottery and Ceramic Supply. You can look that up online. Davin's, D-A-V-E-N-S, Davin's Pottery and Ceramic Supply. You can buy glaze from there. They have these little 4 ounce or 2 ounce jars. And it's up near Buford Highway, Chamblee, Tucker.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
So it's near the Brookhaven train station.
Okay.
Buford Highway, I get off on the Chamblee Tucker exit and make a left and keep straight. But other than that, you can GPS the directions, and you can also look that up on the, just look it up on Google. Davin's Pottery and Ceramic Supply. That's where I get our pottery supplies. Don't forget, I will be calling you all later today to set up a schedule. One thing that will be helpful, let me go ahead and end class 1 second. So thank you once again for joining Kimberlie Wright for Hand Built Pottery. I hope you create something beautiful, and I will see you next time. Peace. Hold on, young people.